So yes, Mastery Under Pressure is the host of the show Under the Hood. And Mastery Under Pressure is exactly what I teach, how to manage oneself in high pressured, high stakes environments. Because I do believe that good mental health is not a natural sport, that it's a learned sport. And given that I'm really a teacher at heart, I love to teach these skills. And last year I did a TEDx talk, and it was called Befriend Your Inner Enemy, where I kind of went through my process of how I got to how I work today. And within that, I was talking a lot about the unconscious, what's under the hood, and how do we access this deeper part of ourselves? Because honestly, that's what drives the train. And so my guests have been very, very generous, courageous people who allow me to ask the questions that frequently are not necessarily asked on podcasts, but I think that really represent the true human being that comes to be the leader that people get to know. So with that, Michael Mintz, I ask you to just tell us a little bit about you and things that you think would be important for us to know, and then I'll get to my questions.
Oh, the short version is I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4 girls. I'm a grandfather. I'm the VP of sales at Grand Homes in Dallas, Texas. Actually, Philip is one of my sales professionals. And that's my dream job, if you want to know the truth. What I get to do every day for the company I work for is what I love to do, helping salespeople be very successful. My dream is helping as many people as possible be successful in life, holistically. In fact, I spend time, helping people be successful at more than just selling homes. So, and then I'm on LinkedIn because I'm genuinely interested in sharing knowledge on how to help people be successful, whether it's at being married, whether it's at being a family, a husband, a leader, whatever that is. I think that success is holistic. You're not going to be really good at just one thing. You're going to have to become good at a number of things to be successful in life. So that's kind of who I am. The other thing that's really, really important to me is I'm also the chairman of Mount Everest Region Educational Cooperative, which we help children who otherwise would not have an education get an education in the Mount Everest region of Nepal. I have some really close friends there that I've known for 18 years. And we help probably somewhere between 150 and 200 kids get an education that otherwise would not be able to afford it. And in that part of the world, an education is absolutely life-changing. So I'm pretty excited about that as well.
Very cool. So I know that you put your money where your mouth is, and you actually are always cheering people on and introducing people just through social media. So I'm sure just in your everyday life, you do it quite well as well.
Thank you.
This is my first question.
Okay.
Given that the assumption is that patterns that are created in childhood impact us as grownups, that success is not just an overnight kind of thing. So tell us a little bit your family of background, your family of origin, and the kinds of behaviors, patterns that you learned at an early age that have led you to where you are today.
My dad was a minister, and my mom was a minister's wife, stay-at-home mom. I have 3 brothers and a sister. And I think probably when you ask me that question, the thing that probably comes to mind first is work ethic that I was taught as a kid. We were always working. My father would find us work to do, even at a young age, whether it's mowing the lawn, mowing the neighbor's lawn, mowing a widowed lady's lawn down the street. In fact, one of the things, if we got in trouble, we had to do on Saturdays was mow lawns. So, my dad did a really, really good job of teaching us the value of work, the ethic of work, why it was important to work. In fact, years later, I read a book that's called Your Work Matters to God, and why it's so important to men in life. But probably the one small negative side of that that I've also had to come to deal with is I remember the words, only lazy people rest. And I kind of came to grips with those words actually in January this year. And why it's so difficult for me to rest and relax and not be doing something all the time. And really kind of coming to grips with the fact that my dad never stopped working, ever. And coming to grips with those words, only lazy people rest, which of course is not true. Rest and relaxation and refreshing is actually really, really good for you. But anyway, those were kind of two of the both yin and yang of who I am and where I am and my work ethic. So
very cool. And again, if anybody, and Bob, I want to say hi to Bob Wally. Bob Wally was one of my guests. And
hey, Bob, how are you, sir?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Together for a long time. And so I think you can relate, because I know Bob so well, I think you can relate to that, Bob, in terms of work, and not getting much time to rest, or not valuing
rest. Yeah,
I think that's important. And then we end up with situations because the body is only designed to do so much. It's not designed to work 80, 100 hours a week and never rest, because your car is not designed to do that either. Right? You don't,
right?
And the car doesn't move. So yes, having to come to terms with that. And what other kind of patterns did you come up with that perhaps, other than that one, that really kind of didn't do you so well, that you had to kind of learn and recognize and grow from?
I'll answer that this way. I actually did not come into my own as a successful business person, as a father, as a husband, or as a leader, unfortunately, until I was 42 years old. I found myself at 42 years old realizing that I was angry, I was frustrated, and I blamed everyone and everything for my lack of success, including my family, my wife, my boss at the time. And I failed to take responsibility for any and everything in my life. And I say magically, it really was an answer to prayer, found a mentor and a coach that very quickly helped me turn that around. And I'm glad, because now I understand that, where you go in life and what you do and what you accomplish is on you. It's simply on you. Until such time as you own the responsibility of your success in life, you're going to struggle to find it. The same happens in marriage. The same happens in a whole lot of things, where we get married so that she or he will either validate me and make me feel the way I want to feel. And until such time as you feel that way about yourself, you never really find it. The same is true in every other area of our life, including the work that we do. Until we actually decide and make the decision, this is going to happen because I choose to make it happen, not because anybody needs or has to give me a break in order for it to happen. Life then quickly changes when you own that responsibility for your success in life.
I know. And sometimes it sounds, kind of looking backwards, right? But isn't that simple?
Well, it certainly sounds simple. Yeah. Yeah.
When I met my second husband, and on our second or third date, he said to me, he says, I take responsibility for my own behavior. Whoa, this is a winner, it's a keeper. But that idea that it's so easy to blame other people.
Right.
It's the most natural thing that we do.
Right.
And again, when we look back in our histories, where did we learn to take that level of responsibility? Your father taught you how to work, and you took that level of responsibility. But those words about what being in control of your life really means, a lot of times being in control, people think it's being, controlling this event or that event, or, this is going to happen, or you're going to do this, or you're going to, no. It's really about, I choose. That's where the control is. Correct?
Right. One of the greatest things that happened to me was my mentor introduced me to the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and learning the words, how you think changes what you do, or how you do what you do. And I had to go through literally a transformation at 42 years old and completely change how I thought about everything, starting with me. And one of the greatest things I learned, that I can change my future simply by changing my thinking. And I can change my thinking simply by changing the words that I'm saying to myself. Because up until that time, every word, all the words I was saying to myself were damning. They were tearing me down. They were doing nothing to help me grow and learn forward. And I remember being so excited when I learned that positive affirmation can be just as powerful as negative affirmation. In fact, in some cases, more so, because you're reaping the benefits of it. You see it, you feel it, you go, I'm going to do some more of that. And so it quickly changed my attitude and how I went about doing what I do. And then I just started transferring it to all the other areas of my life. Okay. It was just amazing to me that life could be that way.
You are a poster child for exactly what I teach, and really kind of the purpose of my being. I like to call it productive thinking.
Yeah.
My thoughts produce something useful for me.
Mm.
Because sometimes positive thinking, people have the idea, oh, if I just think it, it's going to happen. But you know that there's a whole bunch of other things that need to happen.
Sure.
Than just the thought. The thought is the beginning. Right? I could tweak the thought, and then I could do the action. Right? And so that really is the pivot. You just kind of named it. Oh yeah, if I could just turn this sentence around. And one of the things I'll add, and I'd love your take on it too, is that mindfulness is a very ancient practice. It's gotten a lot of talk today. It's a very modern thing, and be mindful, be mindful.
Right.
But the definition that I used, that I learned a while ago, was mindfulness is being aware in the present moment without judgment. Right. And so once you took the judgment away and you looked at it as data, really look at how I'm thinking. We call it the witness, right? You get to witness how I'm doing this, as opposed to being all in it.
Right.
Make sense? Right. So in terms of the people that you train, how do you bring that in?
Well, I'm a huge fan of creating a vision for life. Okay. In all areas of my life. The problem with getting to a place where you can sit down and create a vision for your life, you have to kind of go back and do some self-examination, right? Because it's all good to say, hey, I'm going to create a vision for my life. The problem when you decide to do that is every negative thought you ever had about yourself is now going to resurface and say, no, you can't. No, you won't. That's not going to happen. You're not smart enough, fast enough, good enough. And so before we can even get to the part where somebody can sit down with us and help us create a very positive and powerful vision for our lives, we have to start to do some work on, can't have that thought, can't keep that thought. I'm going to have to come up with some self-reaffirming statements. And so I first walk people through, and I get a lot of pushback, believe it or not, especially from men, on self-affirmation. Okay. And it's really funny that I say, well, we're gonna start by making a list of 10 self-affirming statements about you, and you're gonna repeat them to yourself 3 times a day. And most men, they don't say this, but they say, Mike, that's just BS. That stuff's just BS. I don't believe it works. And the truth was, I know for a fact it worked, because that's what worked for me. I remember the first time thinking, I'm a little different. I'm thinking different. I'm acting different, because the mentor that I had me doing this every hour. Had a little cheap Timex watch, and it went off every hour, and I had to say those 10 things. And I remember after about a month, I'm thinking different. I'm acting different. And that got me so excited that I have had a affirmation list ever since. I also have a grateful list. I teach people, look, until such time as you're grateful for what you have and where you are, you're never going to be able to get to what you want and where you want to go and what you're going to have. My grandmother used to say, until you're happy with what you got, you're not going to be happy with what you get. And so it's putting yourself and your mindset in a place where I'm happy with who I am, but I also want to do this. And then having self-affirmating statements that say to you, yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can. I wrote a little ebook that's entitled, Yes, You Can.
Add one thing, and as everybody's kind of watching you, can you get Michael's emotional content? These are not just words. You know, I used to, when I first started working, I used to say to the young women that I was working with, I hear you, but I don't feel you. And if I don't feel you, you're not going to change, right? So I just want to point out to our listeners, that one of the reasons why it has been so effective for you is because you brought in the emotion. You weren't just a talking head.
Right.
I can guarantee you, if you were, you would not have had the success that you've had with these techniques.
True.
Right? So I encourage anybody who's taking and listening to what you're saying, feel it. And that's kind of what they talk about in Think and Grow Rich. I'm going over here because it's right on my shelf. Because it is the emotion and the logic, the two things that go together, the heart, you know, and the head, that make the shift and the change. So I just want to kind of point that out, because it's really an important piece that you have, you know, just really kind of embraced. And that's why people get you. And that's why people want to work for you, because you believe what you're saying.
Yes.
Words, right? Because you had the experience. And let me ask you, so once you started to change your thinking, how did people respond to you?
Oh, obviously, because I'd made a lot of enemies. I mean, I don't mean enemies, but, you know, if you live a life 42 years and everything that you think and say and do is negative, and I was deep entrenched in self-sabotage. You know, you leave a wake of dead bodies along the side of the road, you know. And so I spent a lot of years repairing relationships, starting with my own wife and my family, my extended family, other people that I'd known over the years. I had to go back and do some repair. And of course, it had to start with me first. I had to go back and repair my relationship with myself. Because I'll be honest with you, that you know, I loathed who I was as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father. There wasn't anything about my life that I was happy about. And it was amazing how I really didn't change any of necessarily the aspects of my life as much as I changed how I thought. And as I changed how I thought, everything began to seem brighter. Everything began to seem happier. Everybody. In fact, one of the greatest things that happened in my life was learning that my wife was not responsible for my happiness. One of the most amazing things that I ever learned in my entire life, that I was responsible for my happiness. She was never responsible, nor is she capable of making me happy. I either choose to be happy or I don't. That again was another life-altering moment when I came to the realization that I get to decide. Every day I get to wake up and decide I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be grateful. I'm going to be, another one I choose every day, I'm going to be enthusiastic. It's a choice I get to make. I see people and they say, I love my job. And I want to go, well, nothing about you says you love your job. Nothing externally, right? And I think we have to allow ourselves to let the enthusiasm of life come rushing out loud. I tell people, look, just stand up, even if it's in the quietness of your own study. Stand up and say out loud, I love myself, and be excited about something. Get excited about something. And then you can start getting excited about your job. I have people ask me every day, well, I hate my job. And I say, well, that doesn't have to stay that way. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, you can get to a place where you love your job. I said, I don't think that's true. I said, oh, I know for a fact it's true. And I'll prove it to you, because I hated myself at one time. And now I love myself. And all that had to happen was me changing my thinking. And exactly the same thing can happen about your job. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be your life job. That doesn't mean it's going to be the job that you say, this is who I am. But in the meantime, you can get up and go to work every day and be stinking excited about what you do because it's moving me towards where I want to go.
So I want to ask you another question. Okay.
Yeah.
Because your enthusiasm is so contagious.
Okay.
How do you deal with the people who think that you are absolutely full of,
Shit.
Yeah. How do you deal with
it? I will tell you, how do I don't think I do. I don't think I deal with it as much as I have people ask me often, especially on LinkedIn, are you the real deal? In fact, I had some just yesterday send me a message. Do you wake up this enthusiastic? I go, well, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? No, I get up every day and then I have to decide I'm going to be enthusiastic. I have a morning routine that I do every morning. And it starts with affirmation. Then I go to gratefulness. And then I go to these 5 things that I read myself that say, I'm going to be excited today. I think enthusiasm for me is what lights the fire for every other area in my life. Okay. I want my wife to know I'm enthusiastic about my marriage. I want my children to know I'm enthusiastic about being their father and my grandchildren, their grandparent. I want the people that work for me at work to know that I'm enthusiastic about them being successful in life. And I think without enthusiasm, not that you have to be wild and crazy like me, but I will tell you, most people think, well, that's just who you are. No, at 42 years old, this is not what I look like. This is not how I sounded. I was quiet and soft and demure.
I want to say one other thing to add to that, because I think you bring up so many wonderful things that are really great teaching moments. We all start out really as perfect human beings. When we come out of there's no anger, there's no hate, there's no bias, we're pure human beings. And then as we go through life and we, things get hidden.
Right.
And so when you get the skills and take the knowledge that these are laws, these are spiritual laws that you kind of have embraced, life works. And then we get to be who we really are. Right? We get to take off a lot of those, kind of that armor and all the things that we grew up to protect ourselves so that nobody would see how fun we are or enthusiastic we are. So I would venture to say this is who you are. That you have given yourself.
I agree.
Right? And what could be more freeing, more wonderful than to be in your own skin? Because then again, as leaders, we talk so much about leadership, we get to model. That's the role of the great leaders. They don't tell anybody how great we are. We just model it. And then people want to hang around you. Right. What are you doing that you do that, that's where the work of all this wonderful work that you've done. And again, I'm sitting and looking at Bob, who I know really well, and your story is not much different than his in many ways, right, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many things that resonate. I think first of all, sort of living in the present, right? Because you live in the future, you just have fear. Live in the past, you've got resentment. Taking stock and being grateful every single day of what you've got is just so important. I think going through a lot of this, it's so much about what's my own inventory. What do I own? What's my part? Because I control that. That's the only thing I have control over, right?
Right.
Your behavior, your words, your reactions. And if you can manage those, right, then others just have to. The thing you always taught me, Tina, right? If I change my reaction, it automatically changes the situation.
That's right.
I agree. One of the greatest mantras I've ever taught myself, Bob, was life is not happening to me, it's happening for me.
Right.
Regardless if at the time it feels good or bad, happy or sad, down the road and around the corner, I find opportunities where that actually was working for my good and for my benefit, because that's how I choose to believe, because it's what I believe, then it then manifests itself down the road for me. That's a way of life. I think life is happening for me, not to me.
And so this is the thing that this little mantra that I developed when I did my TEDx talk. It was cut, reframe, respond. Cut, stop. Just stop and notice, right? Notice what you're thinking and feeling, and then choose to respond. So any other questions? We only have a couple more minutes, but what you are really, Michael, just such a treat, because before and after, and your honesty, and because so many people go through life without ever, getting the call or taking the call and really shifting. And so whatever anybody on this call and who listens beyond, these are the things that we want to teach. Look how much happier we are when we get to understand and own that we create our own reality.
Yes.
It's life changing.
Yes. Again, until someone wants to ask a question, I'll tell you that probably the greatest example and the greatest experiment even for the rest of my life has been the work that I've done inside my own marriage in using this process. I've termed the phrase learning to love my wife for free. And people ask me what that means. And I says, well, I love her with no conditions attached. There are no expectations in return. And when you say that, of course, you're saying unconditionally, but I find that most people either don't or don't want to understand the word loving unconditionally. And when you say loving for free with no expectations, I find a lot of people tell me, well, that's not possible. And I go, well, of course it's possible. And they say, no, well, prove it to me. I said, I'm happy to. I said, do you have a child? Yes. And I said, were you in the delivery room when that child was born? And they go, yes. And I said, when they handed that baby to you, what did that baby have to do in order for you to love that baby? And the answer is always nothing. Nothing. Okay. And so I started by learning to love myself for free first. No expectations, because what I learned was I had a list of expectations that I had to jump through in order for me to love myself. Well, obviously, I was projecting all of that stuff out onto everybody around me, right? But then as I began to learn to love myself for free, now I can start loving my wife for free. I had a guy about a month ago. He says, well, how long did you start to love your wife for free before she started doing it too? I said, well, it took about 3 years. He said, oh, I'm not sure I can do 3 years. I go, well, it's really not deciding, do I want to love my wife for free with no expectation in return for 3 years? It's really, do you want to love yourself that way? Because once you start loving yourself that way, loving your wife, that becomes easy. That's easy because it's who you're becoming. It's what you're doing. I then moved on to my children. I then moved on to my extended family. And now I'm really kind of trying to work hard at loving people. I don't know about y'all, but I go out into the world and people make it awfully damn hard for me to love them for free. They do. They just work hard at it. And just taking a breath and go, no, I love you, brother. I love you. I have people who respond on LinkedIn and they are just want to be ugly and nasty. And I go, you know what, brother, you're welcome to your opinion. I love you for it. If there's anything I can ever help you with, please be sure and call me. And so people say, well, why are you doing this? I said, I'm doing it for myself. This is for me. I'm loving people for free because of what it does for me. I hope that there's people that are reaping the benefits of me loving them for free, but really I'm the one who's being changed the most every day because of that practice. So thought I'd throw that in there.
Fabulous. No, that's a wonderful, wonderful way to end this fabulous thing that, yes, we could go on for a lot longer. Is there any last word that anybody wants to share with Michael before we say goodbye for now?
Very moving, very inspirational.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
There you go. So let me ask you, Philip, do you know your boss a little better, or he just, this is just who he is, and you know him who he is?
There's a reason I follow him.
There you go. There you go. So thank you. And thank you for joining us. And I really look forward to getting this out there. I know you have a huge number of people that will really kind of love to hear your words.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited to share this.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is Mastery Under Pressure, where we teach all the skills that Michael has really embodied. So just get in touch with me, Tina, at Mastery Under Pressure. I've got lots of things that will add on to all the learnings that you can learn here. So thanks again. Thank you for
Bye,
joining.
guys.
Bye. Bye, y'all.